Hello there. Have you ever wondered if the witch of the gingerbread grove from Hansel and Gretel was truly evil? Tonight, let's become her and search for the truth together. You awaken in the body of the witch of the gingerbread grove. The first thing you feel is regret, so sharp and sudden it robs the breath from your lungs. The world sees you as the wicked witch, the devourer of children, but reality is softer, lonelier, filled with years of silence and sorrow. Around you, the world flickers. You wake in a crumbled cottage, its sugared walls long melted into moss and rot. The scent of burnt wood and candied ginger lingers. Beside you, a crooked ladle, rusted and stained with dark molasses, and within you, a name waiting to be remembered. So, before you drift into this tender darkness, remember to like and subscribe to Whisper Audio if you truly want to hear the forgotten tales I whisper here each night. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Now, dim the lights, let the soft winds hum around you, and let me take you to the tale never told. It is late autumn, the kind that doesn't fall, but folds, slowly, into itself gray and sodden like the breath of something ancient. You awaken to find your fingers curled around nothing, though the muscles ache as if you'd once held something dear. The hearth is cold. The hearth is always cold now. No smoke has risen from your gingerbread chimney in a decade or more. The roof slants inward with time and rot. The candied panes of the windows have melted into syrupy streaks along the warped wood. Moss has eaten the icing lines you once piped so carefully across the walls, white frost shaped into songbirds and moonflowers. The house is nearly silent, save for the skittering of mice and the occasional creak of bones in the rafters. Not your bones. No, those were long buried. These are the beams, the rafters, the rib cage of a memory made edible. You rise and walk, barefoot across licorice tiles. They crunch. They always do. In the corner sits your old cauldron, bent, soot scarred and silent, not for potions, not for poison, for soup, bread stew, mostly, the kind you made for the starving ones, the kind that made them laugh and lick their fingers and ask if they could stay. You remember the sound of that laughter. It hits you like a knife. They came in twos, mostly, brother and sister, cousins, once, even triplets. Too many mouths, too little food in their villages. You never asked what had driven them here. You only opened your sugared door and let them in. You were not always alone. They called you many things: sugar mother, the bread witch, Auntie Sweetroot. It didn't matter. They smiled when they said it. And for a while, that was enough. But words rot faster than sugar. You step outside. The fog is thick and silver, clinging to the air like wet lace. The trees loom tall, sharp things that remember fire better than kindness. The trail that once led to your house is gone, or maybe it was never there. Children always found you when they needed to. That was part of the old magic. But they don't come anymore. Your hands drift to the low-hanging branch of a crabbable tree and snap off a twig. Still sharp, still bitter, like the first boy who stole your key and tried to boil you in your own pot. You had no choice. But that's not the part they tell. They remember the oven. They forget the hunger. You return inside and sit by the ash-strewn hearth. It still smells like bread, Not fire, not char. Bread. The warm kind. The kind made with honey and a mother's care. You made it for the little ones. Even after they stopped looking at you like a woman and started seeing you as a warning. Do you remember your name? You try. It's there, beneath the dust, beneath the sweetness. A name with lilac vowels and roughened consonants, like river stones under your tongue. It was your mother's name once, and her mother's before that. Women who healed, women who fed, until they were hunted, until they became stories to keep children from wandering too far into the woods. But you were never the monster. Or was she the one who betrayed you first? The one who left her child at your door and never came back? The one who told them you'd eat him if he misbehaved? The one who lit the match? There's a loaf of bread still sitting in the oven. It hasn't risen in decades. The forest is too quiet now. You stand outside your cottage and watch the gray fog move like breath from a sleeping giant's mouth. It curls around the trees and coats the earth in stillness. Not even the birds sing anymore, not for you. Once, children came through the fog. Small feet, hesitant steps, big eyes full of storybook fear and deeper, older hunger. You fed them. You always fed them. The forest took so much from them. You only ever tried to give something back. But then, one winter, they stopped coming. You waited. At first, you thought it was the frost or the wolves or the old puffs grown over with bramble and thorn. You lit sugar lamps on your roof, baked warm loaves, and left them in the window to scent the air with cinnamon and hope. You even placed pebbled sweets in the underbrush, a trail to bring them home. Still, they never came. Instead came silence. It is a strange grief to miss children you never bore, who came to you not by blood, but by need. They called you witch when they were frightened, then mother when full. The change was always sudden, always soft, a name said through crumbs and drowsy laughter, curled beside the oven. You remember one in particular. Her name was Merit, she sang while she cleaned your cauldron. A little off-key and proud of it, she told you her father beat her when the bread ran out. She liked your house because it never had corners dark enough to hide fear. Your roof smells like birthdays, she once said, and then gone. You still don't know what happened to her, or to any of them. One day, they simply stopped finding you. You began to rot in the stillness. That was the year you stopped baking. Instead, you wandered the woods in a black cloak, drawn tight like grief around your shoulders. The villagers saw you just once, and the story changed forever. They said your hair was a nest of snakes, that your eyes burned red through the mist, that your teeth were stained with child blood. They never asked why the path to your house was lined with flowers, never asked why your door was always open. They forgot you were once the girl in the village square, pressing gingerbread into starving hands while the warlords rode through and took the last of the grain. They forgot the famine. They forgot the fire. But the stories remained, the ones with sharp teeth and sweet endings, the ones where you lured the innocent, ate them, cursed them, turned them into candy and cages, and maybe, just maybe, you began to believe them too. There's power in the stories people tell about you. Power and poison, you tasted both. You remember the first time you truly saw yourself in their eyes. The mirror in your bedroom cracked with frost. but your reflection was still clear enough. The woman who stared back had hollow cheeks, lips flecked with soot, eyes soft with sorrow. She looked nothing like the monster, and yet she looked like someone who might become one. That night, you stood at the hearth and mixed your last dough. You didn't bake it, just held it between your hands, heavy and warm. Then you fed it to the birds, one piece at a time. They didn't thank you, but they came. Some stayed in the eaves, building nests in the sugar-laced beams. Others circled the roof and vanished. You told yourself it was enough, that giving anything to anyone was still holy, until one bird returned, a magpie. It landed on your windowsill with a piece of red cloth clutched in its beak, ragged, stained, familiar. You took it gently, fingers trembling. It was part of Merritt's dress. That night, you buried the cloth beneath the old crabbable tree and whispered a name you hadn't spoken in years, your own and hers. In that moment, something in the earth answered, a shift, a hum, not forgiveness, but memory. Maybe that was when the forest began to change. You think now, sometimes, that the children stopped coming not because they no longer needed you, but because someone else decided they shouldn't. The same someone who lit the tale that burned your name through every village hearth. The same someone who whispered she eats them, but who started the fire. And was it ever truly yours? She came barefoot, bleeding, and veiled in fog. You saw her first from the oven window, the only pane not cracked by frost. She moved like a ghost between the pines, hunched and slow, dragging something behind her, a cloak, maybe, or a shadow. You went to the door, heart thrumming. No children had come in years, but she wasn't a child. She was a woman, thin to the bone, hair matted with bramble and ash. Her dress was torn and stiff with old blood. One foot was wrapped in reeds, the other bare and red, a raw smear of suffering. Her lips were blue, her eyes wrong, familiar. You didn't ask her name. She didn't offer it. You only opened the door. She stepped inside without a word and collapsed at your feet. The shape she carried was wrapped in a quilt so threadbare it was more memory than cloth. You saw the curl of small toes. A boy. He was still breathing. You laid them both near the hearth, lit a fire, warmed broth. You crushed cloves and juniper berries and stirred them into the steam. The smell filled the house, stirring something older than hunger. She did not eat. She watched the flames. When she finally spoke, her voice was paper dry. He's yours now. You blinked. What? Take him. Feed him. Keep him safe. Do better than I did. You looked at the boy. Pale, freckled, 6 or 7, maybe. He was missing a front tooth. He looked nothing like her. Is he your son? She stared at the flames. Not anymore. You didn't press. You never did. That was your mistake. Perhaps. The next morning, she was gone. You searched the woods for days. Found nothing. No tracks. No blood. Only the faint echo of her voice in the trees. He's yours now. And so, he was. You called him Corin. He was quiet, like fallen snow. He watched the fire with that same haunted stillness she had. When he smiled, it never reached his eyes. But he loved your bread. He helped you bake it, his small hands shaping the dough with solemn reverence, as if sculpting something sacred. He asked questions in whispers, as though afraid the trees might overhear. Do witches have hearts? You smiled. Sometimes. Do you? You pressed his flower-dusted palm to your chest. Feel for yourself. And he did. And for a while, it was enough. You grew used to the sound of footsteps in your home again. The hum of child's song, broken and sweet. You hung ribbons above the hearth, sugar stars. You almost believed the silence had ended. But there was something wrong with Corin. At night, he'd wake screaming. Not words, just a single note of terror. Too old for his throat, he scratched at the walls in his sleep, leaving behind claw marks you couldn't explain. And sometimes, he stood at the edge of the forest, whispering into the dark as if answering something only he could hear. One day, you followed him. He didn't see you. He walked barefoot, like her, and bled from the same foot. His trail led to the old crabbable tree. He knelt there, one hand on the earth. You heard him whisper. She said you'd try to keep me. Your breath caught. She said you'd feed me lies and call them love. But I remember, I remember the oven. You stepped out from the brush, heart in your throat. Corin, he didn't flinch. He only turned, eyes calm, voice small and final. She told me everything. You shook your head. I never hurt you. No, he said. You fed me. He looked at your hands flowered and warm and open, and for the first time, you saw fear in his face. Not terror, not revulsion, pity. That night, he vanished. You searched until your knees bled, called his name into the trees until your throat cracked. You never found him, only a single thread from his tunic, caught on a thistle stitched in red, just like hers. You brought it home, sewed it into the ribbon above the hearth. Sometimes, when the wind is right, it flutters, and in that soft, trembling motion, you wonder, was he ever really yours? Or had he been sent here for something else entirely? The woods began to whisper your name again, not in love, not in longing, in warning. It began with a child's song, sung off key, far away, in a voice too young to remember your face, but old enough to recall your myth. Sugar bones and pepper eyes. The witch will bake you if you lie. You heard it while gathering wild thyme near the stream, and it stilled your blood more surely than winter. A girl's voice, and then laughter. Distant, fading. You dropped the herbs. You followed. Your feet led you back to the old path, though no trail should have remained. Thorns and vines once covered it. You'd made sure. But now it was clear, bare as a bleached ribcage, cutting straight through the forest like memory. Merciless, unbending. At the end of it, nestled between thistle and you, was your house. Your house. But not quite. The icing was too bright. The shutters freshly painted. The windows uncracked, glowing amber with firelight and something sweeter. Life. For a breathless moment, you thought it had been restored, that the house had forgiven you. But when you stepped closer, you saw it wasn't yours. It was hers. An imitation, a confection. You watched from the shadows as children ran through the doorway. Dozens of them. Laughter spilled out like warm milk. Bread steamed on the sill, and in the garden grew candied lilies, fat as teacups. And standing at the oven, back turned to the door, was her. The woman from the woods. Hair clean, eyes calm, smile like something practiced. She hadn't vanished. She'd replaced you. You stumbled back, heart cracking along its seams. In your rush, you knocked over a lantern. It shattered, glass glinting in the dusk. She heard, she turned, and she smiled, not with surprise, not even malice. With recognition, she stepped into the doorway and called after you, "Thank you for keeping him warm." You ran. Branches clawed your face. Roots caught your heels. The forest closed around you like a jaw. At the cottage, your true one, the ruin, you collapsed beside the hearth. The fire was long gone. Only ash and silence. On the mantel sat Corin's ribbon. Still, you didn't cry. You just sat and thought. You remembered her eyes, how empty they had been when she first arrived, and how full they were now, like someone who had eaten her fill. What was her story? Who had she been before she laid her child at your hearth and vanished? Was she a mother, a witch, a wanderer in borrowed skin? You remembered a tale, half forgotten, of a woman who traded names like trinkets, moving through time like smoke, slipping into the lives of others and wearing them until they frayed. A thief of stories, a ghost made flesh. Had she taken your life, or had she simply taken it back? The question festered. You stood slowly and approached the cracked mirror near your bed. For the first time in years, you looked, not at your face, but into your eyes. They were not red, not wicked, not even old, just tired, still capable of warmth, still capable of being misunderstood. You whispered your name, not the one they gave you, the real one, and the mirror did not shatter. That night, you did not sleep. You lit a single sugar lamp and sat beside the cold oven, ribbon in your lap, listening to the wind scratch along the shutters like an old, forgotten tune. Outside, something moved through the trees. Not children, not wolves, her. You did not rise. You only whispered, "Keep him safe," and the wind replied, "I will." But even then, part of you still wondered, was that her voice, or was it your own, spoken from a place you no longer recognize? The snow returned in silence. No flurry, no fanfare, just a hush laid thick upon the trees, muting even the birds who had once trusted your crumbs. You watched it fall through the cracked window pane, each flake catching what little light remained. In the world, the sugar lamp had burned out hours ago. You let it. No more sweet illusions. You hadn't baked in weeks. The oven's mouth remained cold, dust gathering where embers used to hum. In the cupboard, flour waited beside the cinnamon jar, both untouched, both almost empty. You could have baked again. You could have welcomed the warmth. But to whom? You dreamt of Corin often now, not as a boy, but older. His voice deeper, his eyes unfamiliar. He stood at the edge of your ruined garden, just beyond the crabapple tree, looking down at something you couldn't see. When you called to him, he turned, but he didn't speak, only watched. There was a weight in his silence, not accusation, regret. You always woke with tears crusted along your lashes, the kind that came from too many almosts. Almost a son, almost a home, almost forgiven. The forest had grown thin with the cold, its shape revealed again, not just woods, but memory. Tall and wild, you walked it sometimes, wrapped in a threadbare cloak stitched with red thread, the same you'd sewn from Merritt's dress, from Corin's tunic. On your left, a crow followed, not a magpie this time, Its feathers glinted blue in the pale light, and it spoke only in stares. You followed it. It led you to a ruin, one you did not recognize, yet it smelled like home. Scorched bread, burnt sugar, something buried. The walls were half collapsed, the floor littered with bones. Not human, no. Pig, bird, fox, creatures you'd once protected from frostbite with your scraps, now gnawed and hollow. And at the center, a doll, made of gingerbread, tiny, cracked, one eye painted with licorice, the other missing. Your hands trembled. You picked it up. Beneath it, carved into the stone hearth, she lied. You sat down slowly, snow dripping from your cloak into the ash. The crow landed beside you, silent. You knew this place now, not from your life, from the tale, the original tale, the one villagers passed down by candlelight, their children clutching blankets. Hansel and Gretel, the witch, the oven, the candy house. You had never been that witch, but someone had, and perhaps she still walked in borrowed skin. You looked at the doll again. It was old, centuries, marked with care, with grief. A child had made it, or perhaps left it behind, or maybe it was a child, twisted by magic, forgotten by story. You don't know why you placed it in your satchel, only that your fingers wouldn't let go. Back at your cottage, you set it gently on the hearthstone. It sat there like a sentinel, watching the cold oven, waiting. That night, you dreamt of fire, not yours, a different flame, a younger one. You were in a kitchen, long before the forest claimed you, a child beside you, laughing, wearing a crown of twigs and sugar cubes. She was stirring batter and stealing raisins. "Will they like me?" she asked. You smiled. "They'll love you." She paused. "Even when I change." You took her face in your flowery hands. Especially then, you woke with your hand reaching into the dark. There was no one there, but the doll on the hearth. It had shifted. Now it faced the door, and outside, snow had stopped falling. The wind had calmed, and somewhere, far off, you heard a voice humming the same lullaby Merritt used to sing. Off-key, defiant, hopeful. You stood, knee-stiff with age and ache. You knew what you had to do. You had to follow it. You had to return to the place where it all began, even if the path led straight through fire. But first, one last loaf. You lit the oven, mixed the flour, the clove, the blood orange zest, shaped the dough with fingers steady as they were old. And as the bread rose, you whispered, "This time, they'll hear the whole tale. Or will they choose the story they've always known?" The path to the grove no longer twisted. It ran straight as a blade beneath the frost-laced trees, lit by slivers of moonlight and the memory of something sacred. You walked slowly, bread still warm in the satchel at your side, its scent rising like breath from a body long asleep. Each step was deliberate, a farewell. You passed the old crab-apple tree, bare now, but ringed with tiny footprints, children's. Fresh, the grove was waking again. Or perhaps it had never truly slept. You laid your palm against the bark, whispered a name. Corin. The forest did not reply, but the air grew warmer. By the time you reached the clearing, the house stood waiting, her house, gleaming in the dark like a wound dressed in sugar. Its shutters painted sky blue, its chimney puffing sweet smoke, its walls breathing, yes, breathing like a living thing. pulsing softly as if dreaming. Children's laughter echoed inside, and the smell ginger, molasses, pine syrup almost overpowered the truth underneath. Ash, fat, bone. You stepped closer. The house opened for you. No creak, no groan, just welcome or trap. Inside, everything shimmered with a warmth that didn't belong to fire. On the long wooden table, pies, puddings, sugar-rubbed apples. Beneath it, toys that blinked. And in the center, turning slowly, was her, Merit. Not young, not old, not her, you, but made new, or unmade. Her eyes met yours and softened. Just for a moment, you came back. You nodded. You left me with silence. She laughed, small and sad, and you filled it with story. I raised him. I named him. I loved him. She touched the ribbon braided into her wrist. So did I. You reached into your satchel, lifted the loaf still warm, still humming, for him, a final offering. She took it gently, held it like a cradle. He's not here anymore. I know. The two of you stood like mirrors cracked in different ways. And then she motioned to the hearth. Do you want to see? You hesitated, then nodded. She opened the oven door. Inside, no flame, only ashes, and laid within them, like an offering, another doll, gingerbread, like the one you'd found. But this one was whole. Its eyes matched yours. You knelt, took it carefully in your hands. Your breath hitched. What is this? Merit's voice was barely a whisper. The child we never were. You looked at her then, and for the first time, you didn't see a thief, a stranger, a replacement. You saw yourself, split, frightened, trying. The silence stretched long between you. She broke it. They'll still call you a monster. You nodded. They already do. And me? You shrugged. A mother. A witch. A lie. You left the doll on the hearth, beside the loaf, and walked into the night. She didn't follow. You didn't ask her to. Back in your cottage, the oven had gone cold again, but you didn't light it. Not this time. You sat beside the hearth and pressed a hand to your chest. The beat was still there, unchanged, soft. You whispered Corin's name once more, then let it go. The doll remained behind, watching. The wind curled around the shutter, carrying the faintest echo of a lullaby, the one you'd hummed as he slept years ago. And you thought, was I the villain? Or was I the ending they weren't ready to understand? Asterisk, the night folds around you now, soft, deep, and undemanding. No more voices, no more stories chasing your shadow through the woods. Just the slow breath of the trees and the hush of a world that has, at last, stopped naming you. You sit in your quiet cottage, watching the embers die. No tears, no rage, only stillness. There is a grace in knowing you were never the villain they feared, only a heart out of time, misunderstood, unloved in the language they used. You tried, in your way, and perhaps that is the only magic that ever mattered. Outside, snow drapes the forest like a closing curtain. You feel the weight of centuries lift gently from your shoulders. Forgiveness isn't a door that opens suddenly. It is a room you build, brick by careful brick, until you can sit in it alone and still feel warm. Tonight, you rest in that room. You are not wicked. You are not broken. You are simply remembered. And somewhere, deep beneath the roots of forgotten trees, a story shifts, the tale changes, the ending softens. A mother waits, a name echoes, a fire glows, low but steady, and you sleep, and somewhere, under the roots of forgotten trees, the villain still waits in silence.